The Boeing 737 MAX 10 is the longest variant of the newest generation of the 737. At the time of making this video, the jet is still undergoing certification testing but has been ordered in large numbers by airlines like United, Delta, Ryanair, and more. Those first two operators we mentioned are still operating the Boeing 757-200, and it's this older airframe that is the closest in size to the 737 MAX 10. And so, how do these two narrow-body aircraft compare? We take a look in today's video. First off, we must mention the fact that there are nearly 4 decades between the first flight of the 757-200 and the 737 MAX 10. The 757-200's maiden flight took place on February 19, 1982, while it was on June 18, 2021 that the MAX 10 took its first flight. Between those two events, much technological progress has been made, and so yes, it would obviously be unfair to look at the two jets in terms of performance and judge one as better than another, but that's not exactly the goal of this video. Rather, we simply seek to compare the size and abilities of the two jets to see just how well the MAX 10 can replace its older cousin. The first point of comparison, however, is not too much about technological progress and simply has to do with design and target market. We're of course talking about cabin size and passenger capacity. According to the FAA Type Certificate datasheet, the 757-200's total passenger capacity is limited to 219 passengers, where the airframe has 4 pairs of Type 1 exits, and 239 when there are 3 pairs of Type 1 exits plus 1 pair of improved Type 1 exits at door number 2. Meanwhile, Boeing's document titled 737 MAX Airplane Characteristics for Airport Planning notes that the MAX 10 can comfortably carry 188 to 204 passengers, or up to 230 in a single configuration. All the data within this document was noted to be preliminary. And so when it comes to passenger capacity, we can see that the MAX 10 essentially matches up with the maximum number of seats that the 757 can accommodate. Both jets are narrow bodies, with economy class having the ultra-common 3-3 layout. So particularly for those shorter missions where runway length isn't an issue, it would appear that the MAX 10 works well to replace the old 757s. But let's continue looking at the data and the other metrics of the two jets. As always seems to be the case, comparing range is tricky as there are just so many variables to consider: engine type, winds and temperature, takeoff, payload, etc. Typically, the range listed in marketing material is just that, marketing. Real-world range is often less than what is promoted. But since marketing material is usually what's used to make such comparisons, let's press on with these imperfect figures as a rough guide. Boeing's marketing material says that a 757-200 with Pratt & Whitney PW2040 engines flying 200 passengers in a 2-class configuration would have a range of 3,915 nautical miles, or 7,250 kilometers. Its takeoff field length would be, in this case, 2,360 meters, or 7,750 feet. Landing field length would be 1,550 meters, or 5,100 feet. With the same number of passengers, a 757-200 flying with Rolls-Royce RB211-535E4B engines would have a range of 3,685 nautical miles, or 6,825 kilometers. Its takeoff field length would be 2,070 meters, or 6,800 feet, while landing field length is listed as 1,505 meters, or 4,950 feet. For the CFM LEAP 1B powered 737 MAX 10, Boeing's website says maximum range is 3,100 nautical miles, or 5,740 kilometers. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us much detail in terms of passenger load and configuration to achieve this range. At the same time, other sources state that the MAX 10's range could be over 3,300 nautical miles, or 6,111 kilometers. This is said to be achieved with the help of an additional fuel tank. Furthermore, when it comes to conditions, there's no detail for runway length within Boeing's Airplane Characteristics for Airport Planning document. Under Section 3.3.25, titled FAA/EASA Takeoff Runway Length Requirements, Model 73710, it states, data to be provided at a later date. We're sure this detailed information will come along with the aircraft's certification. Nonetheless, the CFM LEAP 1B's maximum thrust is stated to be 28,000 pound-force at takeoff. The 757-200 with PW2040 engines has 40,100 pound-force of thrust, while it's 43,500 with the RB211s. The stark difference in power shows just how capable the 757 is when it comes to shorter runways. But based on the information that is available for range, we can see that the MAX 10 comes up short when compared to the 757-200. This could see the 737-10 still fly transatlantic, perhaps get safely to Dublin. However, requirements for reserve and emergency fuel may ultimately rule out some routes, although JFK to Reykjavik, Iceland, would seem to be a realistic possibility. And then when it comes to cargo capacity, the 757-200 offers 47.3 cubic meters of volume when combining the forward and aft compartments. For the MAX 10, total bulk cargo capacity is stated to be 55.5 cubic meters. Neither aircraft's belly hold can accommodate containers. And so, when looking at the size and approximate range of the two aircraft, it would appear that the 737 MAX 10 is a decent replacement for the 757-200 in many ways. The ability to access shorter runways would be a factor. However, for connecting cities on short and medium-length routes where airport runways are sufficiently long for the MAX 10, well, it makes perfect sense why United and Delta have decided to buy the variant in such large numbers. The jet would appear to perform perfectly fine on existing domestic 757 routes such as New York-Boston, New York-Fort Lauderdale, Atlanta-Miami, Atlanta-San Juan, and more. United has flexibility on which variants of the 737 MAX it'll take from Boeing, but the carrier could be operating well over 200 MAX 10s in the future. Delta has orders for 100 of these airframes, with options to purchase 30 more. When it comes to Ryanair and the 300 it has ordered, well, the type should have no issues handling those short intra-Europe hops, assuming sufficient runway length. But what are your thoughts on the 737 MAX 10 as a replacement for the 757? We know many of you aviation enthusiasts out there have a special place in your heart for the 757, so we recognise the difficulty in accepting any replacement for the jet. But do let us know your opinions by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.